something very, very dangerous.
Get these spidey sense, I was like, oh, something's off.
And I'm just like, man, I'm waiting to hear something,
Keep that crowd warmed up. Is Mr. Yahola Tiger.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the 15th episode of the War Cry podcast. I'm your host, Yahola Tiger. Man, it's kind of crazy. We're 15 in. Like, I feel like I've blinked over the course of the last, 3-4 months, making this podcast, and, to see the amount of people that have reached out and like are telling me stories and telling me like how much they enjoy the podcast. Like, it's kind of wild. Like, it's weird that people actually want to hear me talk. Like, it's weird, but no, we're going to talk about a few things today. I don't really have a specific topic, but I do, find some things very interesting in the world that's going on today. And first thing I kind of want to talk about is, have you guys seen Perfect Match on Netflix? No, I'm kidding. No, I'm just kidding. We're not gonna get into that. If you have seen that show, that's kind of it's a Love Is Blind, The Mole, Too Hot to Handle, all those greasy Netflix reality shows. They're all basically into one, trying to find the perfect match for some money. You guys know how it goes, but yeah, that's just super crazy. But no, I was kind of watching Netflix, and there's a movie that came out last year, and it's based on a Stephen King novel, and it's called Mr. Harrigan's Phone. And it's basically like I said, Stephen King short book, but essentially what it is like this kid buys this old man a phone, and then the rest is, kind of the plot. The old guy, learns how to, which Donald Sutherland's in this movie, and, he really knows how to play like a super old guy. Like, I don't know how old he is, but I feel like he's been playing an old guy for like 20, 30 years now. He's like Morgan Freeman, like never to be outdone when it comes to being old. Or what's that guy's name? He did westerns. Robert Duvall, another dude, been old for like 40 years. Anyways, but like I thought it was kind of interesting when it comes to like the relationship between us and our phones. And you go back to like the old days where they were reading books and listening to classical music, and everything was basically, analog. And basically this movie kind of talks about what happens, to someone who is hit with instant gratification or instant, different, instant news. And, through the course of the movie, you find out, there's kind of some more paranormal, kind of weird stuff going on. And I thought it was really, really interesting, that dynamic. And, you see, I actually look with my daughter now, I see kind of the way technology is kind of, already ingrained in her, who she is. And it's kind of wild because, like, growing up now, like I said, I'm a 90s baby. Some of you 60s, 70s, 80s, I know you guys got it a lot more than we did, but growing up, I feel like we were outside a lot. We were outdoors hanging out. We basically survived coronavirus by drinking from the water hose. And that sounds kind of crazy, but I feel like drinking from the water hose has saved some lives, and basically it's just kind of built up our immune system. But like, we're so worried nowadays, like, oh, the germs, and like, it's kind of interesting, that like you look at the dynamics of, people that have raised a certain way, like outdoors, able to, eat dirt literally, and to now, like I see, I see the way things are going now, and I'm like, man, that's kind of like, that's why your kid's always sick, or like, and it's also, other things too. But I just find it kind of interesting, going back to Mr. Harrigan's Phone, that, it's the relationship that we have with technology. And to be honest with you, I can feel myself, like, I think I'm smarter because I can do more technology, but there's times where like it's just basic analog stuff, and I'm like going straight like brain dead, like dang, what is that really, like, I can't remember what that was. Like, it's little things like, you're just like, man, I can't remember that, or like, I really don't know how to do that, or I forgot how to do that. Like, but yeah, I would say go check that movie out. It's a good movie. Like, I had seen it on Netflix before, but Mr. Harrigan's Phone. Go check it out. I know a lot of you guys, I get this shared to me probably a few times a day, maybe a few times a week, is all this kind of weird UFO, type of stuff going on. And to me, what I find kind of interesting about it is, this playbook has been out for a long time. If you guys are not familiar with Project Bluebeam, Project Bluebeam is essentially, and this is crazy too, because this is all declassified information from our government, and that basically they're staging an alien invasion. If you notice, you kind of look around, China kind of started it off with sending us that air balloon, which was kind of wild. Like, I kind of get a kick out of, like, watching, looking on social media, and you have, like, the different, like, here's Oklahoma. Oklahomans watching the Chinese balloon go over their head. They had, like, a picture of, like, a lady throwing a shoe or a rock. Like, yeah, that's definitely some Oklahoma stuff. Or shooting a gun at it, like, bro, that's, like, thousands of feet in the air. Like, that gun's not hitting that. But it kind of kicked it off, here in the last few weeks, and the more that I see on social media about this weird UFO, like, one thing that really kind of struck something that was very interesting to me during the summertime, last past summer in 2022, was that they had turned on that what do they call that thing? The hydrogen collider, I think is what it's called. Basically merging, trying to, collide man, I'm sounding crazy right now. I'm sounding like some dude, like, you ever seen that video of that kid trying to explain, like, that's me right now. But it's called, like, the hydrogen collider, and basically they're trying to collide these particles together, and they did it. They ran it for, like, I think a week straight or a month straight. Like, the most they've ever ran it. Like, I think before it was like maybe a couple hours. And I think it's kind of interesting to me about that is, that to me it's kind of started off kind of the weird stuff, like the Mandela effects. And this is gonna sound kind of crazy, but I want you guys to think about this. What if that started the apocalypse? Think about that as I say that. What if this started the apocalypse? So we're getting all these weird UFOs. We have, like I mentioned in a previous episode, like Pakistan was flooding. It's like desert out there, like in the desert, most desert, places. It's flooding. Mississippi River was the lowest it's ever been. There's different rivers all over Europe that, like, there were tombstones that were basically set out, or like these big rocks, and basically carved in it was, if water reaches lower than this, run, or something crazy, or along those lines, like, hey, you need to get out of here, or hey, life is not good. And so I think that's what started it, and I think that's where it started to really kick off. And you go back to Project Bluebeam, basically, if you bring in all these UFOs, like, the UFO thing started when they brought out UAPs. The government finally acknowledged UAPs. And Russell Sun Eagle, from Okie Podcast, and also co-host with me, Chris, and Tyler on Unsolved Mysteries of the Reservation, brought up this theory that I thought was so very interesting about maybe what these crafts are. So I mentioned the hydrogen collider, and I mentioned Mandela and effect, which then brings into, like, multiple dimensions. This is Russell's theory now. I ain't gonna steal it from him. But what if this is future us, or past us, or another version of us coming to see us and see what we're doing? Like, not me, like, oh yeah, there's me up there, flying, like the smart me, like the real smart me. No, like, I'm saying humans. What if that's us, and we're seeing what we're doing, how we got to where they are in their time? And that's kind of a theory that I honestly think about that, more times than not, because it's kind of interesting to kind of know that could be out there, And one thing too, like I said, there's all this weird stuff, like they're trying to bring back woolly mammoths, and there's a crazy theory, and I think I mentioned this briefly in another podcast, but woolly mammoths were around, and they basically helped warm the planet. and helped help different things warm up. Or no, I'm sorry, not warm up, freeze. So like they're trying to do some things, with the woolly mammoth to keep things, like I guess maybe for global warming purposes. I don't know. Who knows? But they're doing all this CRISPR DNA stuff on Indian elephants, and it's just interesting. Like I said, these are just things that I've seen just in the news, and kind of reading articles on the side, or just something real quick, and I find that we're kind of in a weird spot right now, and you know with like the TV shows that we've gotten, like The Walking Dead or Jericho or even The Last of Us. The premise of that show is basically a fungus, which is in all of our foods, decides to mutate and make us all crazy and becomes a part of our bodies. And like you heard that if you watched the first episode of that, they said that's very possible. And so it's like you just like we're eating stuff that's just so terrible for us. Processed foods, high fructose corn syrup. It's just literally bombing us out. Like in the Indian community, diabetes and all that stuff, diabetes is running rampant. So there's just like I said, there's things that I notice, and I'm just like, man, I don't really talk about. I kind of try to keep it to a specific topic or stories, and I wanted to give you guys something this week, just to kind of something to think about as you kind of go through your life, because I'm always in constant thought when I see something like that. That's kind of interesting, especially like the multi-dimension type thing. Like, what if when we ran that hydrogen collider, how do we not know that like Bigfoot or these big snakes or the Thunderbird or pterodactyl, whatever you want to call it, or like dinosaurs or velociraptors. How do we not know that they're not like they didn't come through a portal like somewhere in India or in the jungles, like or in the jungles of Brazil? Like, how do we not know that like something wasn't opened up and these animals are coming through, or these beings or these creatures that like are dragons? So it's like kind of crazy to think that that we mess around. Like, I feel like our level of mess around and find out is like so low. Like we just like we want to like we're going to continue to mess around until we actually find out, and then now we're on The Walking Dead. Like, it's kind of crazy, but another kind of some other things that I've been thinking about. I was on Oki podcast with Russell back in, I think it was October, and this is a conversation that me and him had about cartoon conspiracies. And I was kind of thinking about my childhood over the course of the week. I kind of reminisce, or being away from home. I'm in the Oklahoma City area now. It's like it's being away from home kind of makes me think a lot about home. It makes me miss Tahlequah, Muskogee area, where my parents live now. And so so I just I was thinking about this, and there's multiple different types of cartoon conspiracy theories out there, and one of them that had always stuck with me the most, and it kind of makes me sad too to think about it. But if you guys remember the show Courage the Cowardly Dog, and in that show, Courage was, it's always obviously an oxymoron. He's really a scared dog. Like, he's scared of everything. He's a little dog and he's scared. And that show is honestly, if you think about it, is through the eyes of him. And so this is where this theory comes from, is that this entire show is from his point of view, because he's a little dog and he's scared of everything. So the people he's seeing are normal people, but his owners, the husband and the wife, are so old and they don't get out anymore that he's never seen outdoors. He hadn't seen outdoors in years, and so that's why he depicts it as a foreign waste, or like a barren wasteland. And I just thought it was kind of interesting. Like, dang, that's kind of sad, And you think of, like you said, as I go down the line, you start thinking of like Ed, Edd n Eddy. So Ed, Edd n Eddy is basically, essentially, the theory is that it's purgatory. That they are dealing with things that they dealt with in their life, but in like a more dramatic way. And that's kind of crazy, because it's like because you think of these little childhood shows, like Rugrats. Like, and these are childhood shows for me, but you look at like the Rugrats, and there's many theories about this, but like one of the theories is that Angelica, the mean blonde-headed girl in that show, is actually losing her mind and seeing these children, and the children that she's babysitting, that she can she's going crazy. Another theory is these are the kids. These are the Angelica. This is the kids that she killed, that she got annoyed with, and basically killed. And like that, basically all those kids are really not alive, which is kind of wild because that show. You have the dad that's kind of a weirdo, and he kind of freaks out about things, and you kind of see the different dynamics of those characters. It kind of makes sense. Them kids might be ghosts, but and even another kind of plot twist too is like Scooby Doo too. Is that Scooby Doo and the mystery people, the mystery gang, Mystery Inc. They are technically ghosts, and they're living in a constant state of rotation, like they're in a loop, and they keep catching the bad guys when they're really the ghosts. And like if you notice in that show, every time they catch the person that's the ghost, it's an actual person. It's not an actual ghost. And so I thought it was kind of interesting. I was like, man, like what else? I kept deep diving, I kept going, but you look at the Simpsons, like they always always talk about the Simpsons and how they predicted things. Like they predicted the Cincinnati Bengals making it to the Super Bowl a couple years ago, and this was back in the '90s when that episode aired, and it was the same two teams that played. Another one is they basically predicted New England and Atlanta 28-3, and New England winning that game. They predicted Donald Trump being president. They also predicted basically the merger between Disney and Fox, which I think is kind of wild because that was aired back in like the '90s. But they always talk about that the creator of that show being like a time traveler. Now I don't know about all that, but it's just interesting. Like I said, these things get me thinking on what, because I've heard this phrase a lot. When I look at this stuff, but they say the truth is stranger than fiction. And that's one thing about like Unsolved Mysteries of the Reservation. We talk about things that are real. Now you may not believe they're real, but they're real to somebody, and they're real. And to me, that's what makes it so interesting about our world, because I've heard so many stories of people like with Bigfoot. Like I've heard multiple about Dogman. Like not everyone is going to be able to see this thing, but when you see it, you see it. Sometimes you're chosen, and maybe maybe you're in its path and not really aware that you were. But it's kind of interesting to just see the perspective of everything. Like we live, like the phrase that I hear nowadays is like we live your truth. And that's one thing I kind of think. I'm like, is my truth someone else's truth? Just a perspective thing. I think just kind of in a way of thinking and a way of the way you see things, because not everyone sees the same thing. Kind of crazy. Another theory that I've heard about mirrors is that like when we look in a mirror, that's not what other people see. Which I'm like, I'm like, dang, am I ugly? No. Like, dang, I'm looking kind of crazy right now. And it's like, when people say, oh, I look terrible today, and then other people say, no, you look good, or your hair looks fine. Like maybe that's perception of how you see yourself, and so it's just interesting. I'm this this is episode 15, and I'm not too anything too crazy on this one. Like I said, I want to keep it keep it kind of light. Like I wasn't gonna give you all an episode this week, but I was like, well, I better give them something. Give them 20 minutes, 30 minutes, something of just talking, and because just get you thinking about some things. Because I know I've had some people reach out, through message and on comments, like, man, you need to talk about more conspiracies, like more kind of, conspiracies that like aren't like, hey, the world is ending, the world is going to end tomorrow type of theories, and the cartoon conspiracy theories to me are the most interesting, because you just they involve your childhood. Like another crazy one is the Flintstones and the Jetsons are all on the same timeline. It's just showing you before and after, which is kind of crazy. But we're running at about 22 minutes on this episode. I think I'm going to cut it. I appreciate everyone that listens. I truly do. I've had so many people reach out to me over the course of the last 2 weeks and tell me how much they like the podcast and how much they listen to it, and that I'm bringing them interesting thoughts and good stories. I know I had some people reaching out to me about the last episode 14. This is creepy, man. Oh man, I got some stories. I had some people reach out to me about some stories that are some pretty, I'll say they're pretty saucy. They're pretty good. And so I'll be telling those eventually. I like to bank up a few of them. So if you got stories, I'll do a part 2 of This Is Creepy. And we'll make it like a little mini series inside the podcast. So if you got any stories, I know I'm looking for college stories for Unsolved Mysteries of the Reservation. If you got any college stories, please send them my way. Russell, Chris, or Tyler, because we're going to be talking about it. We're recording this weekend of the 26th of February, so I will be there. I know the next few episodes I will not be there, and I won't be on the episodes, but like I said, I told you guys, when I gave you guys an update of kind of how my life is, and it's just going to get harder to get down there, but this timing is just perfect because, I got some things lined up, but like I said, send me your stories. We'll do a This Is Creepy Part 2, and then, like I said, send me your college stories or your high school dorms. If I know that there's some schools out there that, you can, like Sequoia, they got dorms, so send me those. And so you can catch me on YouTube, War Cry Podcast. You can catch me on TikTok, One Man Band 918, Facebook. If you add me on Facebook, please make sure you send me a message along with that. And so then I know that you listen to the podcast. Just let me know you listen to the podcast. We'll chop it up. I'll ask you what your favorite episode is, and we can be friends now. But I appreciate you guys listening in. We're almost close to 2K on audio plays. I appreciate y'all for that, and I'll catch you on the next one.